So myself and two colleagues had gone over to Bahrain. And I was staying in almost like an Airbnb type apartment in Bahrain. When I was in Bahrain, we were doing our 2 weeks, and I think it was around about 10th or 11th day that I was there. Was starting to feel quite unwell, and went to see a pharmacist. Was quite unwell and had to be taken into hospital in Bahrain. Had to have some emergency treatment. I nearly died when I was there. I had some medical concerns, gynecological issues that meant that by the time I got into the hospital, the surgeon had said, if we don't operate now, if you hadn't had you here today, you may well tomorrow not still be here. So at that point then my colleagues had gone back to work and travelled, so I was in Bahrain and had to have this treatment. So I was in hospital for a couple of days, and the surgeon had said, you can't fly for 10 days or so. Anyway, 5 days later I had an infection and they needed to operate again, so I had to go back in.
Wow.
Ironically actually 6 months ago today it was.
Wow.
And it was on and it was on my mum's 60th birthday, and I'd been really unwell, and when I was in, I'd always been very, very, always been very active, very fit, and I suddenly realised that actually I'm in a country, and it was the funniest thing, Jen, because I knew I was going in for the surgery, but because I knew nobody there at all, you don't know anybody, you have your survival instinct really has to kick in.
Yeah.
And so I went and did my food shopping before I went in for my surgery. Because what else do you do?
Yeah. But I mean, weren't you too sick to go food shopping? I don't understand that.
Well, yeah. So I remember walking around. I was in an expat supermarket and walking around, and Bahrain is a place where there are lots of military people. And I remember walking around a supermarket and a man looking at me. And Jen, I didn't look particularly well last week after a month up a mountain, but this was like the Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah.
So I'd gone shopping, not looking the greatest.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember thinking, I've got about 5 more minutes before I could be in real bother here. I know that I'm not very well, and I'm really starting to feel quite sick. And I've always been a very healthy, athletic person. And it really, there's only another time in my life where I'd had a miscarriage that I'd felt quite that poorly. And I really thought to myself, of course I can go food shopping. Like I'm Sarah, of course I can. I've never not been able to do things for myself. And I remember being in the supermarket and looking, and in Bahrain you can very much spot a military person, and I'd seen this man, and he'd looked at me, and I said to him, are you like, I really don't feel very well, and this is the situation. And like a godsend, he said, that's fine, I'm in the Navy, I'm going to take you to the hospital right now. And he took me to the hospital. And then checked on me the next day to make sure, to see how I was. So I was very unwell, but in my head I was like, of course I can go food shopping. I need to, because afterwards I'm going to be in trouble, otherwise I've got no food.
But so hold on a sec. So now you stopped over before, so you had to do your 2 weeks time there in Bahrain before you went to Dubai. You got sick, so you went to the hospital. They said you had an operation straight away, and then you came out, but then you got an infection. They said they need to operate again. But before you went in for the second op, you went shopping.
Yeah.
Okay. And where were you staying in the meantime? Like, were you staying in a hotel, or what? Where were you staying in between these two ops?
Yeah, so in a hotel. I was in a hotel in Bahrain. And Bahrain's a strange country, Jen, because I've travelled a lot by myself, as I said, but it's a very different dynamic in Bahrain. There's not a lot there. So, all of a sudden what I realised was that in the whole world, was very much alone. And, you know, little Miss Independent that was going to be able to, you know, that was able to do all of these sporty things. Actually, I was just completely on my own, and it was a survival instinct of, if you don't get up and get your shopping, Sarah, if you don't do this, you have nobody. So it's, you know, it was very much, that's what I had to do. And then as a result, go on.
What was I mean, can you tell me about what happened?
Yeah, so essentially I had a burst cyst on my ovary, and I'd tried really hard because I knew I had to fly, I needed to get back to work, like, was the bottom line, and I tried really hard to see it through to the 14th day where I could then fly. And I knew from about maybe 10 days in that I was really starting to feel quite unwell. And then it was just, I went to see a pharmacist, and he said, no, you're really not well. We're going to have to do something about this. And I tried to see it through to fly, but there was no way. And I'm quite glad he didn't. I'd probably have been quite unwell, but it was burst cyst. And during the first operation, the surgeon was amazing, absolutely second to none. And he said, you know, I've tried really, really hard to save a part of your ovary. I've managed to save a part of it. So, you know, he was amazing. And then when I went back in the second time, that wasn't meant to be. And so he had to operate and take it all out. But he had tried his absolute utmost to make sure that didn't happen. And as a result, you know, it just so happened that he hadn't been able to get all of the infection, and I had to go back.
So what did he have to take all out?
All of my ovary, so my left ovary. So he tried very hard. He saved a part of it the first time, and then the second time, he said it was almost impossible, that it was, if he'd left it, I would have been really sick. So so he took it all out. Which at the time was, like I say, 6 months ago today, did lots of things. You know, I had to ring my mum on her 60th birthday and say, Mum, you know, and I'm the eldest of 4, Jen. So I felt very much, first of all, I'm not there for my mum's 60th because I've chosen to live abroad. And then I'm now having to go, happy birthday, Mum, by the way. And then as a result, you sit and you do a lot of, I've always done a lot of sporting things. I've never been in a situation, Jen, where I've had to, it is literally survival instinct. Or maybe once I got stuck between the border of Brunei and Malaysia, but survival instinct had to kick in. And what it meant was that I suddenly had in this moment, at 33 years old, I'm not mortal. I'm not immortal. I am
invincible. Which is interesting, and it's such a good point, because you know that is you know, inspiring in itself for people to realize, you know, because you make different decisions. And I know that some of us have to go through, you know, we've got to go through it. We've got to go through that experience ourselves to realize it. But we do think that we are invincible, certainly in our, you know, 20s and early 30s, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because you do, you know, I remember being mid-20s, I suppose, and somebody had said to me, do you want to do a marathon in a couple of weeks? And I just went, yeah, all right, no problem, no worries. Because at that age, you just think, I'm immortal. I can do anything, you know. I can, you know, anything from going out on a Saturday night and feeling immortal to getting up on a Sunday morning and going, I'll run 30 miles today, you know, and all that happens in between. And you genuinely do think you are immortal. And I suppose I do think, though, I think it's really important that people have that in their lives up until a certain point. If I don't like to think that people have to go through something to realize that they are immortal, but life has twists and turns that do that. there will always be something in your life, whether it be you are a military soldier who, you know, who has fought for his country and then a poignant moment hits, or whether you're just somebody that goes into an office every single day, and you are, you know, you sit in your life, and what you do is incredibly important to your role and your contribution to life. Everybody will be hit somewhere along the line with something, which is not a nice thought. But what it does is, I think it makes that those first, you know, you look back and youth is wasted on the young. Up until you're 30, I quite like the thought that people think they're invincible, actually.
Yeah.
Because, you know, nobody wants to think that they're not. So go out.
And I mean, exactly. And actually that is the time where you know, where you really go out there and connect with, you know, reflecting on that as well myself, you know, you're like balls to the walls. I mean, you know, you're just like, you do crazy stuff, but I mean, it is also the best time of our lives, isn't it?